Manu, in the Manu Smriti, describes society as a strict hierarchy based on birth. According to the text, people born into lower castes were expected to serve the higher castes, especially the Brahmins. Their social status was considered permanent, and they were not meant to move upward in society. The book also gives unequal punishments. If a lower caste person insulted or challenged a Brahmin, the punishment could be extremely harsh, while a Brahmin harming someone from a lower caste often faced a lighter penalty. This shows that the text placed higher value on upper castes and treated lower castes as naturally inferior within its system. Regarding women, the text says that a woman should never live independently. It states that in childhood, she must obey her father, in youth, her husband, and after her husband's death, her sons. Women were not encouraged to make their own decisions in public or private life. Their main duties were described as serving their husbands, managing the household, and remaining loyal. Confucius taught that society functions through clear hierarchies and obedience. In his philosophy, people were assigned roles in relationships, such as father and son, ruler and subject, and husband and wife, and they were expected to follow these roles without question. A son must obey his father, and a subject must obey the ruler. Resisting authority or challenging one's role was considered morally wrong because it disrupted the social order. His ideas were controversial because they emphasized submission and hierarchy over personal freedom. By placing moral responsibility on following authority rather than questioning it, his philosophy justified strict control and limited the capacity of individuals to oppose unjust rulers. These teachings shaped social and political structures in ancient China and were seen by later critics as supporting authoritarianism and reducing personal autonomy.
Kautilya taught that a ruler must prioritize maintaining power above all else. In his book Arthashastra, he argued that a king should use any means necessary to secure his kingdom and protect his position, including espionage, manipulation, and preemptive punishment of potential threats. Trust and hesitation were seen as weaknesses that could lead to the ruler's downfall. He advised rulers to be strategic, calculating, and sometimes ruthless, believing that moral constraints should not interfere with political necessity. His ideas were controversial because they justified deception, violence, and harsh control as necessary tools of governance. Kautilya also viewed women primarily in terms of their utility to the state or alliances, rather than as independent individuals, reflecting a hierarchical and utilitarian approach to social relationships. Aristotle argued that some people are naturally suited to be ruled by others. In his work Politics, he described natural slaves as individuals who could follow instructions but lacked the capacity for independent reasoning, and he believed they were better off under the control of a superior person. He also claimed that women were naturally less rational than men and more emotional, which in his view made them suited to being governed rather than governing. These ideas were controversial because they justified slavery and social inequality as part of a natural order. As one of the most influential thinkers of the ancient world, Aristotle's writings gave these views enduring authority, shaping social and political thought for centuries and reinforcing hierarchical structures that limited the freedom of both slaves and women.
Plato believed that most people could not make good decisions because they were too emotional or did not understand important things. He thought only a small group of very smart rulers called philosopher kings should make decisions for everyone. Plato said people should be given jobs based on what they were good at from the time they were born. He also believed that rulers could tell noble lies to keep people calm and make society peaceful. He wanted to control stories, poems, and art because he thought they could make people feel the wrong emotions. His ideas were controversial because he wanted a few people to control everyone else, decide what they could know, and even lie to them to keep order.
Mauryan advisors taught that the caste system was not created by humans, but was a law of the universe. They believed that people were born into different social classes based on their actions in past lives. If someone was born poor in the lowest caste or as a servant, it was considered the result of sins from a previous life. The advisor said that people should not complain or try to change their place in society. Obeying the rules and accepting one's position was seen as the right moral choice, and only by following these rules could a person hope for a better life in the next birth.
This system controlled both actions and thoughts because it made people believe that suffering and low status were deserved. By convincing people to accept their hardships as natural and just, it created a powerful social order that lasted for many generations and limited resistance to authority. Socrates believed that democracy could be very dangerous. He thought that ordinary people were not always smart enough to make good decisions for everyone. According to him, letting everyone vote and rule was like letting passengers steer a ship where most people did not know how to navigate. Decisions made by the majority, he said, would often be guided by emotion, ignorance, or people who spoke the loudest. Socrates argued that only those with true knowledge and wisdom should make important decisions that affect others. His ideas upset many people in Athens because they challenged the authority of the common citizens. Eventually, the city sentenced him to death. Socrates accepted this calmly. He refused to escape or apologize, and drank poison as he was ordered to, showing that he stood by his beliefs and did not respect a system he thought was flawed. His death became a lasting symbol of his ideas about knowledge and authority. Thrasymachus argued that justice is not about what is fair or right. He believed that justice was created by the powerful to control the weak. According to him, the laws, rules, and moral codes in any society are made to benefit those who are already in charge. Justice, he said, is not universal or natural. It is a tool for keeping strong people in power and weak people in their place. People are taught to follow these rules and believe it is virtuous, but really it serves the interests of rulers. Thrasymachus said this openly, while most rulers agreed quietly and enforced the system without admitting it. His ideas were controversial because they challenged the common belief that laws and morality exist to make society fair. Instead, he claimed that society is guided by power and self-interest, not fairness or goodness. Feizi believed that people are naturally selfish and cannot be trusted to act responsibly on their own. He argued that the only way to run a state effectively is through strict laws, rewards, and punishments. According to him, rulers must never show weakness, never trust even their closest advisors, and never let emotions affect decisions. Instead, they should govern with clear rules and severe consequences so that no one would dare disobey. Feizi thought that kindness or mercy in a ruler was dangerous because people would take advantage of it. His ideas were controversial because they justified ruling through fear and strict control rather than fairness or moral leadership. Later, the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, used Feizi's ideas to create a highly organized but harsh state that punished disobedience severely and controlled the lives of millions, showing how influential his philosophy could be. Legalists believed that people are naturally selfish and bad, and that only strict laws and punishments could keep society under control. They thought that rulers must have total power, and that everyone should obey without question. According to them, ideas from books, history, or philosophy were dangerous because they could make people think for themselves. This led Emperor Qin Shi Huang to burn books and punish scholars who refused to follow the rules, sometimes even killing them. Legalists argued that the state is more important than the individual. A person's value was measured only by their usefulness to the empire, such as being a soldier, farmer, or worker. Anything beyond that, including independent thought or personal ambition, was seen as a threat that had to be removed. Their philosophy was controversial because it justified extreme control, surveillance, and violence to maintain order and strengthen the state. Draco was the first person in Athens to write down a complete set of laws. While writing laws was an important step, Draco's code was extremely harsh. Almost every crime, no matter how small, could be punished by death. For example, stealing a small item or being unable to pay a debt could lead to severe penalties, including slavery or execution. Draco believed that showing mercy or leniency would encourage more crime, so he made the punishments as severe as possible. When asked why he used death for so many offenses, he reportedly said that he could not think of a harsher punishment for the worst crimes. His legal system became so famous for its extreme severity that the word draconian is still used today to describe very harsh and unfair rules. His laws were were controversial because they valued strict punishment over fairness or proportionality.
Heraclitus believed that most people were unaware of reality and lived their lives following tradition, emotions, and what others told them. He thought that these people did not think for themselves and were not just ignorant but dangerous because their ideas and behavior could influence others and create chaos. Heraclitus was critical of democracy and popular opinion, believing that most people were not capable of making good decisions for society. He argued that only a very small number of people could truly understand the world and see reality clearly. He considered himself one of those few who had insight into how the world really worked. His ideas were controversial because they dismissed the majority of people as incapable and suggested that only a small elite should have knowledge and influence, challenging common beliefs about fairness, participation, and the value of ordinary citizens in society. Mencius believed that human nature is naturally good, but he also had strong ideas about rulers and power. He argued that a ruler who ignored the needs of the people, taxed them too much, or led them into unnecessary wars lost the mandate of heaven, which is the divine right to rule. According to Mencius, when a ruler lost this right, the people not only could remove him, but also had a moral duty to do so. This idea was controversial because it justified rebellion and the use of force against rulers. Over time, many leaders, rebels, and warlords used this argument to claim that they had the right to take power, even if it meant violence or war. Mencius's philosophy was powerful and often used to challenge authority, showing how a moral idea could also become a tool for political conflict. Xenophanes argued that the gods people worship are created in the image of those who worship them. He noticed that Ethiopians imagined their gods with dark skin, Thracians imagined theirs with red hair and blue eyes, and even said that if animals could draw, they would make gods that looked like themselves. This meant that people do not discover the true gods, but instead invent gods that reflect their own culture and appearance. Xenophanes' idea was controversial because it challenged the belief that religious teachings revealed absolute truth. At a time when religion supported kings, wars, slavery, and social rules, his claim suggested that much of what people considered sacred was actually made by humans. By pointing out that religion could be shaped by human perspective, he questioned the foundations of authority and power, showing that beliefs used to justify social control were not necessarily universal or divine. Epicurus taught that the gods exist, but they do not care about humans. He said the gods do not reward or punish people, and they have no plans for human life. According to Epicurus, the fear of divine punishment or hope for reward after death has no basis in reality. He argued that priests, temples, and rulers who used fear of the gods to control people were taking advantage of false beliefs. He also said that death is nothing to fear, because when we are alive, death does not exist, and when death comes, we no longer exist to experience it. His ideas were controversial because they challenged the authority of religion and rulers who relied on fear of gods to maintain control.